Everyone, welcome to the second to last of our summer sprints. It's officially, when's summer over officially? Is it today or tomorrow? Like, when's fall start? Today?
September 23rd.
Oh,
23rd.
So by the time you're
Okay.
watching this, you have entered into fall. We are currently still in summer. So we're wrapping up summer sprints. This is our second to last one. If you're just now joining us, my name is Stephen Callender. I'm the owner of Foster Commerce.
I'm Derek Moberg. I'm the current head of engineering at Foster Commerce.
I'm Michael Van Dorth, and I am a senior front-end and back-end developer at Foster Commerce.
So today, specifically, we're going to wrap up some stuff. So we've been talking about four things throughout our entire series. Our mini headless CraftCMS build, which we are going to talk about next week because we'll have more to show. We'll demo a bit more on that one. We had talked about that one last week. So if you missed that, there's kind of a tech stack kind of intro, essentially, that Derek presents in our video for last week. This week, we're going to wrap up our three other things: commerce reports, variant manager, and Foster checkout. The first one, which is commerce reports, and we've made a decision. Derek, you want to give us an update on what we're doing with commerce reports?
Yeah, we kind of did a closed beta and showed it to a couple people for some feedback before we did the open beta. And both of them said, this is nice, but it needs a handful of features before it really would feel useful and like something that that I would pay for. And so we're going to kind of take a step back, look through that feedback and address that before coming back with maybe an open beta. So I imagine if you're signed up for this newsletter, that would be the place to find out more.
Absolutely. Yep. So we'll stay tuned on that. We'll put some work into there. So the next one is the variant manager. And so I wanted to bring this conversation to a point of like, we had this whole struggle earlier in one of our recordings in the summer. We've been talking about like, what are we doing with this thing? Are we doing it the right way? Are we building the wrong thing? Like all of that, right? So we've had these conversations. And I think we got a little more clarity of like what we're trying to do with the variant manager. To recap some of that, we're not trying to compete with FeedMe. FeedMe does some stuff already you can import, but there's still challenges with variant management currently in Commerce 4. We'll find out what they're announcing with Commerce 5 at .all, possibly even with Commerce 6. Who knows what they're going to start doing with variants and options and attributes and all that good stuff. But for now, there's still a pain point. And so we still want to move forward with the variant manager and make it available for us and our builds and for others and their builds. And there was a discussion that happened actually on Discord, Craft Discord, and the Commerce channel. And I'm going to share my screen. We got permission from James to share this. So I'm just going to share my screen to make it easier for everyone. And this is highlighting of why we're building this variant manager, really. And so, yeah, James asked this question. So does anyone have a general rule of thumb as to when to use variants versus when to use custom fields for line item options? Variants have some natural advantages, such as per variant pricing and stock, but if the relevant options don't change the price, is it worth it? If you wanted two different variant groups for size and color, it seems that Commerce doesn't really handle this particularly well. For example, you'd need to manually create every possible permutation as a variant. So that question really gets to what we're dealing with. And I responded to James in that thread, so you can go in and kind of look and really to this idea of like, how do you solve managing variants and in a way that doesn't ultimately, where I kind of was trying to ask questions and lead to the conversation was, is there meta information around some of these things? So like with colors, do you need other things about the color? Do you need a hex to show it that's managed in the content? About the group of colors, you want to give people an option to display it a certain way. So all of that kind of stuff, like what data lives behind the name and value of these options? Do you need more or not? But anyways, it brings us to the idea of also like managing variants is just really difficult because you don't have a default way of storing all this stuff. And if you create custom fields, then like how do you know that you got the right ones, especially if you have a bunch, if you're manually adding each variant in Craft, You have to like go back and like, okay, I got the red small one that's fuzzy. Now I need the red small one that's not fuzzy. And now I need the red large one that's fuzzy. And you have to like manually all that, right? All that stuff. Our variant manager is trying to remove that. We're trying to just be able to create, like from a CSV, all your options, you know, based on your like all your variants based on your options, or you don't have to manage the actual variant blocks for the purposes of at least all those unique combinations. But a part of it then we have to solve for is like, well, where does the data live? What field types does it live in? And then how do you spit that out in the front end? And how much is it manageable? So that's what we're going to continue to solve. We have it live on a site now that a client is using, and we got feedback that it's working and it's working well for them. So that's great. And we'll keep moving on that. So we don't know exactly when our beta on that will come out or when first version will come out, but it is something we're excited about. We're feeling more confident about. And so expect to see that from us sometime, hopefully this year, 2023.
Okay, so yeah, as Stephen was saying, we have this working now on a client site, the variant manager. And so as you can see, this is part of our variant manager plugin in that we have different attributes set in a sort of like a table view sort of thing. And this data gets updated directly via a CSV file that gets uploaded. So these would be the sort of attributes and attribute groups that would make a variant unique, sort of thing. But rather than having to input all of these manually, all these different permutations of the variant, we solve that by using a CSV import, which is something that's probably a little more practical for your clients to use. So I have here, for example, this is one that we're using here on this product. This is just a sheet here of a sample product that we're doing. So like say I change this to the price of $295 and I make some other changes here, whatever changes I want to make, you know, for pricing or for any of the different options. The way this is currently working now, we have our sort of like base variant fields that are necessary in order to create the variants. But we also have these option fields, and these are the options that kind of create the attribute. So you or your client would be setting up a CSV file with these different options, a little bit easier to work with, and then uploading it. And that would occur in our variant manager. So right now, this is sort of a proto variant manager. We just have an upload button on it for right now, but to kick off the process, you would just upload the CSV file using the name. The name is it's what's right for now. It's being recognized as the name of the product at the sort of product level in order to determine if this is a new product and group of variants or if this is editing as an existing one. So we're going to upload it here, and it's going to ask you. It immediately notices, okay, this is for an existing product. Do you want to edit? Click edit, and should be good to go. It should be importing. Now we go back to, I'm going to refresh the page here for this product. So now the changes that we made, this change that I made on the one specific variant has been updated automatically.
Great. And one of the other things about it too, then, is if we want to change the option label. So for example, what tire pressure are your tires running at? If we just want to put tire pressure, right? Or if we just wanted to put other things, then we would just come through.
Yeah, that's the way we're working with it right now is sort of just using the column names with the prefix of the word option, colon, and then whatever the column name is you want to be. So that would be the attribute group. And then these are the different attribute values underneath that group.
So this way then, product managers, people who are administering these products and stuff, they're still deciding which variants they have. They just get to do it in a spreadsheet versus trying to manage it in Craft, because each row here represents a variant. So they still have to kind of map all those out. It's not auto creating based on what are the options for tire 60 and 65 psi, and then automatically generating this. So here they still manually create all that, correct?
Yeah, it's more of a it's to me it just seems an easier way where your clients, I mean, are going to be working anyways in most cases with spreadsheets if they have an extensive catalog anyways. So it just seems like the right approach for them in order to make massive changes to a bunch of variants, not having to go into each one and make all those changes manually.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So last but not least, we're going to look at our Foster checkout and do a final status update on that for the summer sprints. So I'm going to share my screen and show the stuff that Lisa has been working on. So we had talked about the Foster checkout. We talked about the cart screen before. We talked a lot about, wish list and save for later and like how to handle all that stuff. I will say I've made an executive decision that wish lists are different than the save for later lists. And what we're going to do in our Foster checkout is not a wish list. It is going to be a save for later list. So we're not going to put a wish list on there. That is going to require like a separate plugin. That's going to be a whole separate thing. So the save for later can stay in the cart. We're going to do that. Everything's going to stay in the cart view on that aspect. So that will be a decision that we'll make on that piece. But let me share my screen and we'll talk about the checkout flow. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. This is it. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Let me get my binoculars.
Exactly. All right. So this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to share, there's tons here as we're like going through the workflow. Tablet mobile, I'm not going to do tablet mobile. We'll stay at the desktop and we'll try to move through somewhat quickly here. Okay. So our first screen is going to be this simple, really email screen. This is something that we've kind of think is helpful. A lot of people put an email screen on the shipping address page. We don't for various reasons. So it's going to be the separate screen here. And yeah, so this is what this would look like. You would have control over some of these things. Like if you want to receive a newsletter, like, right, if your client is on MailChimp or Klaviyo or customer.io or wherever the heck they have email addresses, that's something that then you would be able to configure. The titles you'd be able to configure, other things in there, but this step would show up here, and it's really straightforward. So I'm going to kind of jump past this screen a little bit, unless since y'all are seeing it for the first time, if y'all have any kind of questions about this part in general.
I can't remember. Are colors sort of like to be determined by the client, kind of, or like by the user, kind of thing, or
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So this is just the UX, so we're not designing colors at this point. But even when we build it out, you'll be able to set primary colors, secondary colors on there, and branding. Possibly even, we haven't gotten to that part about like being able to choose possibly even a font, from a Google font selection by default, or those things. But also in here, all of this header is not a part of it. You would be able to include in a Twig template your own header and footer. So you could kind of choose what you want in there. But the idea is it's kind of a minified screen to keep you focused on the checkout flow from there, but you can optionally add in header and footer kind of from that general layout perspective. If you are logged in already, we will know it and you'll skip this step. So this is kind of the preamble, kind of to the checkout flow. It's not really considered a step. It's just kind of then getting identity for the person. But if you're logged in, you will never see this because we'll already know who you are. Your craft store will already know who you are. The next part, we're here at the checkout view. And when you get to the checkout view, what we're starting to do is stack at the top the user information. So whether you're logged in or you're checking out as a guest, that would be something that would be known and displayed here. You could edit that, go back through. So that would be a piece that would be possible here and display. So we're not kind of losing that information. And then you jump into the first step of checkout. And so we're going to have this stacked view. You can already see like the layout. So if I kind of like back up a little bit, you're going to go from top to bottom, but it's still a per page view. So it kind of feels like a single page app in that sense. So we don't have the breadcrumbs across, we don't have the steps across the top. Instead, they're top to bottom, but they are going to be unique pages. So you can click back on your browser, go back to the previous step, and this is the way it will be viewed. So for the shipping address option here, if you don't have an address entered in, it'll just be this form. We're gonna kind of default it to where it starts with country, because country will define especially your provinces and states down below. And so we'll start with country and then move down. We'll have address here as the two kind of fields for address. and then straightforward at that point. So our next screen after shipping address is going to be the shipping method. So at this point, then we will, again, stack the information that you had. So shipping to will be up there, which you can go back and edit. And that's how you get back to that screen. And then you would move forward with shipping method. So at this point, the shipping method would show up here in this way, with each option that Commerce returns as a viable shipping method for this cart would be displayed here. And with all of the kind of labels and descriptions that have been added for those, whether you're using the thing that we're going to do as well is make sure that this works with, it should just by default really, because it does by default, but confirming that this works with just CraftCMS shipping methods, but also Posty. So for those of you who use Posty, but making sure this stuff shows up from there. And that's where we can then have like logos for like FedEx or UPS and stuff kind of show up nicely, kind of built in for those pieces as well that we'll do. And then here, our last step is the checkout. So again, we're stacking at the top all the previous decisions that have been made. You can go back and edit those, and then you get to your payment information from here. So if you're using credit card, enter in the credit card information. So whatever payment gateway you have, then we would just honor the payment form that is submitted. We might have some custom stuff in here if we already know, like there's some custom things that help out with like PayPal or whatever, or the different like Stripe or Authorize, VIPs, any of those things, right? So that would be in here based on your options, however you've labeled them in Commerce. And then also, so for example, then it's showing a different method of PayPal here, what that looks like. Anyways, so that is being able to choose your address, same as shipping, use a different billing address, which would then show that same address form as before. So that you could select those things during your checkout. So that's kind of that piece. And then I think we've got, oh, so here's PayPal, what that would look like. So you click it and it opens up that PayPal button and triggers that there. So after checkout, after payment, I should say, then you would go to a confirmation screen. We haven't finished designing that confirmation screen, so we'll just finish that outside of summer sprints. And that is the intro through our checkout flow, Foster checkout. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on summer sprints. That's our status of our 3 non-mini headless build things, which we're going to come back to next week. So we walked through those 3 things. So if you want to hear about those, if you're just now learning about this for the first time, you can definitely sign up to our email list. We'll keep people informed. And let me show you. So if you have subscribed to our email list for the summer sprints, our commerce-minded kind of email, then we are going to pick a winner next week who's going to win our t-shirts. And so here's what you're going to get. If you like black t-shirts, then you'll want this one. So I will have some of these at .all for myself, some other people, Foster Commerce, and that's it. So
hey, it matches mine.
Yeah, it does exactly. See, it looks great. So you're gonna want one. We'll see you next week as we talk about the mini headless build, and Derek is going to demo even more of that build. Stay tuned, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.
Thanks, y'all.